podcast, I'm interviewing Salwa Owens, an entrepreneur. She's a fashion designer and the creator of Divine Sweat. Sal was also an ascension guide, a speaker, and as she describes herself, a priestess of Yeshua. More on all of that to come. She also has a new podcast out right now called Wine and Spirits. Welcome, Salwa, to the Mamas con Ganas podcast.
Thank you for having me. I am literally so excited. Like, I could not wait to talk with you. I don't even know why yet, but I'm so excited.
Oh gosh. So I literally, when I was thinking about the fact that I was going to be interviewing you, you were the first interview of 2024. I was like, look, I'm getting goosebumps. I was like, what a more perfect person to interview than somebody that I believe embodies the divine feminine. This is how because I was thinking, how do I describe Selwa? Well, for me, she like embodies the divine feminine and like total goddess energy. And I'm like, yes, that's what we need in 2024.
Thank you. Well, you are a goddess yourself. I'm sure you know. And if not, I've just reminded you, you are.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I have so many questions for you because, okay, Mamacita. So, first of all, I want to say your Instagram, I think it's like one of my top favorite accounts that I've ever come across. Because
Oh,
when I see the stuff that you put out, like the footage and the energy behind it, every single time I see you in your fabulous get-ups, I mean, you are a fashion designer, but you mix that with like spirituality and you mix it also with like just it's just like I said, it's goddess energy. And every time I see you in one of those beautiful, because you do these beautiful like um mini movies, I would say, like music videos and this divine goddess energy. And I'm literally scrolling through your thing going, yes, and yes, and yes. And it's one of these accounts, there's a lot of accounts that sometimes people think or people feel that like bring them down. And I have
mhm.
to say that yours is always one that I look at and it makes me feel so alive. So I want to say thank
You're,
you for
you're
you.
gonna make me cry. Well, my whole intention with social, first of all, I'm not a content creator. I'm a life creator, and the content will follow. It's just an expression of my life. And my rule of thumb really is it has to add value. And if I was to die tomorrow and that was the last thing that I shared with the world, I would be proud from like my other realm. I'd be like, yep, that was authentic expression. So, and I love beauty. So that, yeah, I try to create beautiful things, experiences, life, but it's really more about somehow adding value and giving my frequency life. And that's just it's a virtual portfolio of my life that hopefully one day I'll look back at the journey and be proud of and make true, authentic connections with people, such as yourself. And that only happens with true, authentic content that is a reflection of your life, not fabricated because you need to post stuff. If you don't have anything to say, don't say anything. Go support other people that are posting.
Yes. No, I love it. And then obviously, people that have been listening to me, my mamacitas know that I'm a dancer as well. And you're a dancer and you have your divine sweat creation, which tell us a little bit. Let's start there. Tell us a little bit about divine sweat. Because
Yeah.
I see you posting that in and it's like emergence. Yeah, tell us about
Yeah,
that.
so Divine Sweat is essentially the evolution of my dancing life. I did grow up dancing like a lot of little girls. I did some ballet, some tap, did all that, and then took a break and then danced through high school and college. And then I created something called Fierce Fitness during my fashion career because I had attachment issues to the word fierce. Everything was fierce. So I'm like, Fierce Fitness. And it was cardio dance and it was great. But as I stepped into my evolution and started having all my awakening moments, my guides started showing me a new way to offer dance and bridging my energy work and the healing and the dance. And I'll be honest, I didn't answer the call right away. This was around 2020, and I was a little bit like, can I do this? I haven't seen it been done like this before. And they were like, you will do this because it hasn't been done like that before. And I sat with it and I ended up breaking my foot, running away from a snake, which come to learn I have past life connection with snakes and that they hold a lot of my power. So I was running away from my power. And I had to have foot surgery, all these things. I was down. And I was like, I had a chat with my guides, prayer, meditation, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, listen, you guys help me out of this one. I promise I will report to mission and I will waste no time. And the opportunity came up for me to apply to do a workshop at, I don't know if you've heard of We All Grow Summit, but that was
Absolutely.
somebody sent me an application. They're like, they're taking workshop applicants for healing. You should apply and do your dancing. And I was one of 200 applicants. I was still recovering from surgery. And I'm like, I'm going to apply. And if I get it, I will know this is divine orchestration that it is time to step up. So I got it. I had 8 weeks between surgery, recovery, and work out again, create this thing. And I did it. I showed up, and it was like showing up for my graduation, orchestrated by the divine that I didn't know was coming to level up my dancing. So, Divine Sweat really is the graduation of the little girl that loved to dance to now the woman that wants to help the other goddesses rise. It's a new rise into what I've been doing my whole life, which we all, I think, are here to do. Essentially, we have our core archetypes and we can't keep rising them. We keep showing up in a new way. So Divine Rise is my newest baby.
I love that. And you have something coming up in February with Divine Sweat, right? Can you tell us about
Yeah,
that?
I do these, I call them activations. They're not workshops, they're not classes, they're activations. You are going to show up and you're going to leave activated. And based on the feedback I receive, I know that we are doing some tremendous work. And it starts with meditation, guided meditation, so you can awaken your energy centers and really understand what you're moving. The connection between mind, body, soul is important when you do work like this. Then we go into the dancing. It is a tone up from the soul up, and I do want to give you a workout. So I do raise that heart rate. We do a lot of dancing. We really push the body, and then we close with energy healing circle. And so I call them activations. I do them in Denver. I probably produce my own about every 6 weeks, and I bring it to other people's retreats, summits, wherever. So if anyone's watching, you want some divine sweat, we travel.
That's awesome. I could totally see this becoming like the new like Orange Theory. Or
Oh,
like the bicycling thing, like something that's like put everywhere. Because I feel like so many women would be attracted to something like that. It's like you get your energy out, you dance, you have creative expression, and at the same time you're connecting to source, you're like meditating. So it's
yeah.
like an all in one, right?
You get primal, like I'm talking raw. I'm gonna have you yelling, singing, things that you didn't know that like a woman in her power should do. Like, why would a woman in her power rage? Well, why would a woman in her power not rage? Because she's got energy to move and she's got lineages of family members that she doesn't even know to heal. And it's her primordial obligation to show up and rage and heal and express and do all the things. So that's what that space really was created for.
Okay, now I want to take you from there because you said something about energy, like right, making your energy move. And I read that you do energy work. For those of us that don't know anything about that, can you explain what does that mean? Like what does it mean to do energy work and how can that help us in our lives?
Yeah, well, energy work can be so many different things because we are energy and everybody has their preferred modality to connect with their energy self. I know that there's a lot of, certifications and trends such as like Reiki, or, some people will do breath work and that's their energy work. My particular energy work really came from a remembrance and an activation of work that I know I've been here on this planet and off this planet doing before. And it wasn't until I did enough work on myself that I started doing work with my hands and even channeling codes that I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel the energy. It is working. It is helping people heal. And I just can only call it energy work. I cannot define it too much. I can't put a label on it. People are like, what do you do? Because like that was amazing. And I'm such a different person. I'm like, it's energy work. And like I said, there's so many modalities that I don't want to put any modality above another, but whatever resonates with your energetic body, wherever you're at, everyone's in such a different place that maybe if you're just now starting to spark curiosity and thinking of yourself as an energetic being, then you start with meditation and you are already doing energy work. Maybe you go to the next level where it's like, okay, I'm meditating and I'm feeling shifts in my energetic being, and I want someone to help guide that energy. Maybe you have blockages. If you are one of these women, we'll say women because I'm talking to, my mamas, but men too, that goes in a room and just like shrinks and doesn't want to speak up because they don't want to rock the boat. You probably have a throat chakra blockage, and that is energy work. And there's so much that can be done to help clear that. And it's work that is beyond the cognitive thinking. So you can go talk to a therapist, be like, I don't know why I can't speak up, and I'm a people pleaser. But you can also go straight to the energetic being and start clearing that energy.
Now, I was listening to your first podcast episode. It's very interesting. And you walk us through what you called your archetypes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came up for me as a question, because you describe your life as basically stepping into like one archetype in your life and then stepping into another archetype. For those of us that don't know what that means, like, well, first of all, like, how did you come in discovering your archetypes? And then second of all, like, is that something that you studied and that you discovered for yourself, or something that somebody taught you?
No, so I'm very intuitive and I work very closely with my spirit team. And so when I was preparing my first keynote and they told me, you are going to give your story. And I resisted that because I thought like someone's had it harder, someone's more impressive. Why my story? Who wants to hear that? And I was given the download that through my archetypes is how I was going to illustrate the story of my life, because that is a sacred mirror to other people's life. So yes, I'm sharing my archetypes. I have 7, but as I'm telling my story, everybody has their own archetypes. They showed up on this planet. You evolve those archetypes and they never leave you. And I can't say that anybody taught me that. It was a download. It's how I learn. I learn through receiving from the divine, and everything in my story is really designed to help you start to see your story in that way. And as I was receiving, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, that's me. And then, oh wait, that's still me. So I was in the unfolding at the same time. That is how I create. I kind of just receive my higher guidance and I take action. And then it's like, whoa, that was great. So I love that they gave that to me, but I really do want other people to start seeing their archetypes, because that is how you honor your divine design. They never leave you. And sometimes people will leave one behind, like somebody that might love, someone might be an artist and they might have had so much struggle in their life that they now think that the artist in them does not get the privilege of existing. But if that is in your divine design, it is your primordial obligation. It is your divine design to honor that artist and transcend the darkness that made you want to put her away and give her life. And that is how you evolve and ascend and honor the God in you. That is your divine design.
Now, when you describe your story, you start in the beginning. It was interesting how you were talking about feeling like you had a very sense like of closeness to source and to God when you were very young, right? And you were living in Mexico, am I right?
Mexico City, yeah.
Mexico City. And you talk about like encounters with Jeshua, like speaking and communicating. And Jeshua, you're talking about Jesus, right?
Right. Yes.
You had that, and then you describe sort of going into another phase of your life where you felt like, well, where is that connection that I once felt like I had to Jeshua? For people who are not, let's say for people that are trying to tap into their spirituality, or they feel like they've never been close, like what advice would you give them in order to be able to have a connection with a guide? Let's see that they feel void of yeah, of like you're saying your guide, because you say you have a guide team, but I feel like some people have never like
Yeah.
encountered even like a presence that, or like the presence that they feel that they connect with. What would you give them as advice so that they feel more creative, more connected to source?
Yeah. So that's a beautiful question. And I would say that the first thing that can sometimes block that connection is our wiring to receive it in any one sort of way. So some people grew up, I grew up Catholic and I loved church. I love any place that people go to connect. I have love and respect for. But it is important that we give ourselves our opportunity to create our own story. And one of the biggest gifts that I had is that I was seeing this light being. We had connection, we had telepathic communication. And so I knew, because I saw that there was light beings and I knew what I was connecting with. And I knew that it was not like it was too vast and big and beautiful to be put in the constructs of a building or a book. I knew, because you can't deny what you feel and get to experience. Some people don't get that. And so they are looking for it within the construct of what they've been taught. A lot of your spirit guides they're waiting for you to ask. They're waiting for you to want to connect. When I do some of my circles, the amount of spirit guidance that is around and guides that are waiting to connect with the human. And I can sometimes, when I do one-on-one sessions, I'm more so able to tap into, be like, you have a spirit guide and this is their name and they want to work with you and and sometimes it's a past loved one that is now their spirit guide. And it's great when it's a bigger circle. I can't be matchmaker to all the guides, but ask and be open to receiving in a way that maybe you weren't taught. Because when we try to fit something that like God is like vast. You can't put it in a definition. So if you're trying to put this energy that is not meant to be defined in names or terms or rules that are defined, you're actually robbing yourself of the opportunity of the all that is everywhere all at once. So I would say if somebody is curious, like I know there's more out there. I know I have guidance. I'm not receiving. What is going on? Ask, and ask simple. Ask, okay, I think I have guardian angels. Please show me the number 7 sometime today or repeatedly. Angel numbers are real. They speak through numbers. Or I want to see something orange. I want, like, ask for your signs and start being open to receiving. And those are baby steps. And channeled writing is beautiful. Sometimes just asking a question and then writing the answer to yourself, being open to receiving it from your higher self. Before you know it, you are receiving information from your guides. But it's about creating the space that you haven't been taught that exists to receive this, and believing and not thinking it's crazy, because miracles are not a thing of the past. And it used to be so accepted to talk about these miracles and, Yeshua, water to wine and all these things. And now, like, if someone talks about that, they're crazy, or they're like too mystical, woo woo, and they're, I don't know, it depends who you talk to, but evil. My family's still very in the Catholic box. So some of the things I do to them, it's like, and I'm just, wait, that's divine, that's God. All I'm doing is freeing it from the construct of what I've been taught so that it can show up the way it's meant to show up for me.
You felt like it's something that you can't define, that you feel that it's expansive, and you felt like, you can't define that in a building or in a book, right? And it sort of seems like that was intuitive to you. But did you ever have any, because of your Catholic upbringing? I was brought up Catholic as well. I mean, I still consider myself as a Catholic, even though I consider myself sort of expansive like you, in the sense that there are things that I can't explain that I know are part of my spirituality that go beyond like what Catholicism dogma speaks about. But was there any part of you ever that felt like, I guess, the Catholic guilt or the shame?
I never did. I had the beautiful invitation from the church to leave when I got a divorce. I had a ministry. I was doing these healing blankets. And this is not me bashing the church. I love anywhere you go to connect, please go, and I love. But I was doing my healing blanket ministry, and there was this form sent out when they found out I was getting a divorce. And basically, because I was getting divorced, I was no longer qualified to serve there. And part of me was like, God, I should be sad, but at a soul level, I felt so free. Like, now I can take my ministry outside this building. And I made a decision out of love to honor my heart intelligence. I knew that that relationship was complete. I knew I wasn't honoring my ex anymore, and we weren't rising together. So how can a decision made out of love cost me to be cast out of the place where people go to connect with God? It just didn't make sense to me. So to me, that was a very clear invitation that it's time to take this connection outside of this building and give myself permission to serve and connect in ways that maybe I wasn't taught. I think that if I hadn't made that choice to get divorced, and if I hadn't faced, the whole, you're a sinner and now you're going to go to hell, and I was like, okay, well, I know that's not true. So now I can officially put all of this in a box of things that don't all apply to me. And I love all of them, and I'm doing this for them, and my rise is for everybody. And it is what it is. But I think that was the biggest invitation for me to break free and to rise my connection to a place that I probably might have stuck there a little bit longer.
Wow, that's like, first of all, you and I have a connection that you probably don't know about, but I got it from listening to your podcast. One is that your divorce brought you back to Jesus, back to Yeshua. In my case, it was exactly the same. Interestingly enough, though, my story diverts in the sense that I actually got an annulment, and I was able to get remarried through the Catholic Church.
Mhm.
Um, but when you say that, I feel like there are so many women. I've heard your story over and over about how they feel, or not just women, by the way, men also, that once they get divorced, they feel this sense of rejection. And it's like, wait a minute, my life is better. My life is more spiritual. I'm feeling more connected to God than ever through my divorce, interestingly enough. And now I'm being rejected by the one place that I actually love. And to put this into context for the mamacitas, I mean, you mentioned in your first episode that you actually wanted to at one point in your life become a nun. Is that true?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a nun because I was seeing Yeshua and I was connecting, and I thought that was my calling because I had to put that connection into a box that was being taught to me. So I would see the nuns. I'm like, well, they're dedicating their life to God. I want to dedicate my life to God. I want to serve. It looks like that. And probably until I was, I don't know, early teens, I wanted to be a nun. And I wore my crucifix everywhere, and I had my little prayer book. I was committed. I had an altar in my room since I was 5. And that the nun thing, I think, was my way of putting my connection into a human story that could serve and was approved of. But with the divorce thing, the beauty of it is, yeah, that was my reconnection with Yeshua at a deeper level. And divorce makes people seem like outcasts, at least in the church. Who did Yeshua love? He loved the outcast. And so really,
Yes.
I mean, can we just bring that one home? So it's like,
Yes.
can we,
Yes. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Yes.
So I felt that was an important part of my story. I'm so grateful for my life, for my ex-spouse, for my journey, because it brought me where I am today. And all I want to do is give a big angelic hug to anybody going through divorce. I actually recorded my next episode that I'm sharing, I think this week, is on why divorce. And I've been so excited to get this out there because I think it needs to be heard from a whole other perspective. And I think it's brave. So, and with yours and your annulment and your remarrying the Catholic Church, I think it's admirable because you kind of stepped up to do things in a way that honors people that love you and you love, but you're open to seeing a different way. And that's beautiful.
Yeah. Now I get this picture when you say that, when you said, that it was basically your moment where you just stepped out and was like, well, now I'm taking this to a whole new level. Now that I'm not even sort of constricted by, like, I get goosebumps. Now I'm not constricted by this dogma or by this particular way of being. I'm going to literally make this into my own divine heaven on earth, which you also talk about on your podcast. And I
Yes.
found very interesting. And I don't know if I'm getting this right, but what I understood from what you were saying is that we're all basically God images in this world, and we're called to basically live our own heaven on earth. So now what I'm hearing, like the picture that you paint in your mind, is now you've broken out of these barriers and now you're like, okay, well, now I'm going to build my real heaven on earth. Is
Yes.
that sort of what happened?
And what is so important for people to know is that this heaven on earth is not like we've been dealt this easy life with everything. It actually means that we've transcended our own hell on earth. And that is how you get to your heaven on earth. You went to one end where you had to have your own pain and suffering, find and cultivate the beauty in that, and create your heaven on earth. And you have harmonized all the light, the dark, all the feelings, and created your heaven on earth. And that is what we're here to do, and elevate Christ consciousness.
I love that. Now, tell me because when I read on your Instagram for the first time, Priestess of Yeshua, I was like, that was one of the first things that I was like, oh yes, this girl and I are connected. Yes, because I'd never seen it written down, but I was
Yeah.
like, when I read that, I'm like, I guess I'm that too. But for you, what does that mean?
I love that you asked that. Okay, so I went to off the grid for a week-long ayahuasca journey, and that was a massive energetic initiation for me that I did not know I was stepping into. I have a whole episode on that I'm sharing, and a part of me was like, "This is too much," but I don't care. It's my truth.
Where
And
where did you do that? Where did you do the retreat, if you don't mind me
so
asking?
it was just me and my partner Tony with this indigenous couple in their land, La Paz, Mexico, and it was I did a lot of work before, and I will just say this. My guides told me my intention on that trip was you're gonna go claim your divine inheritance so you can help activate the masses. I'm like, okay, that sounds a little cocky. I'm gonna go and tell them this is my intention. Like, who do you think you are? But okay. And I thought this is just sounds like I'm here to get my crown and be like this bad bitch that's gonna activate the masses. But hey, okay. I was put through this energetic, like plugged into otherworldly energy. And I passed my initiation, and on the last day, I won't go deep into that because that could be its own episode, but I had my encounter with Yeshua, and the light being Yeshua. I was called to go off on this tree area, and I asked the facilitator, I'm like, can I go over there? I'm being called over there. And I had already had this discussion with Yeshua. I'm like, I want a reunion with you, and I want a sign, and maybe send me a snake when it's done. So I went off to the tree. We had our encounter, and I mean, if I start talking about that, I'll like bawl because it's just a lot of heart energy. But I will say at the end, I heard this is what you are. And I had all these flashes in my life from being a kid and my crucifix and seeing him and my altar and when I'm like, It all made sense. And I'm not a labels person. I always wonder why people like give themselves names like that. I'm like, what? And I was told by my guide that I had to like announce it somewhere. And of course, to me, I'm like, all right, I put in my Instagram profile because that's pretty bold to me. If I put this here, like a once fashion designer, or not, she's Priestess of Yeshua. Okay, she's going off the cuckoo's nest. I don't know. But putting it there, apparently to my guides, is going to help call in more of the people that carry similar codes. So that is something that I put there, not fully understanding why they wanted me to claim that there. I mean, because I'm like, I know who I am, I know how I serve. Do I really need to put that there? But apparently, and you saying that is like, oh my God, so it worked.
Oh
But
yeah,
I,
absolutely. I read it. I was like, oh my God, I think that's what I am. It was almost like a recognition, like a
yeah,
mirror. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah. And also, I saw my snake at the end of that encounter. There was a black and white king snake coming at me, and I was playing my shaman drum, and I was like, yep, that was it. It is complete. And just one more thing, 'cause I love sharing these miracles. I told Yesh, I'm like, I want a gift to remember this. You ordained me, like this is happening. I'm human. I need a physical gift. And he said, it will come. So I got back home, like a little time passed, and I felt the need to get a new shaman drum because I love using them at my activations. And we went to visit this drum maker, and he had made this drum. And I was like, I love that drum. Can I have it? Like, can I buy it, not have it? They're not just going to give you a drum. And I looked at the date when it was made. It was the same date that I was ordained as Priestess of Yeshua. And I saw it. I want my gift. And he said it was coming. So, everything, this is real gifts to me. And I know that it's out there for some people that need, I don't know what they need. Because I have my sign. So I'm like, there's your sign. But yeah. So that is Priestess of Yeshua. And basically what that means to me is I'm here to usher Christ consciousness. And that's not a one-person job. So yeah. You're a priestess of Yeshua. Let's do it, sister.
Do it. Do it. Oh, and it's interesting because you put Jeshua instead of Jesus, which is also Jeshua is my favorite name for Jesus. But how did you have you always called him Jeshua?
Yeah, that is how he would make himself known to me. And I do have other past life incarnations with him. I've had Akashic readings, and two of those lifetimes I knew him as Yeshua. So when I learned that, it all made sense. But even as a kid, I remember getting mad that they would call him Jesus. I'm like, this is not Jesus, it's Yeshua. Like, why are they branding him like Jesus? So it's just how I've always known him. I did go through my period of conforming and calling him Jesus. But when I had my reunion, I'm like, okay, Yeshua's back.
Jeshua is back.
I'm gonna put that on a shirt. Yeshua's back.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna ask you another question for people that have no idea. What is light? You also describe yourself as a light code activator. What does that mean? Is that also in line with with the Christ bringing what is it? What did you call it? The Christ
Consciousness.
consciousness? Yeah. Is that together or is that something separate?
It is together, but it's a little bit bigger than that because Christ consciousness, it is an energy, but we also come from light star constellation families way beyond our civilization that we don't even understand. And we carry those codes in our DNA and in our cells. And when I was prompted by my guides to go off the grid again for another initiation. This was after I'm like, you guys, I just did like this was a lot. Like, what are we doing now? Because I'm open, but also like little now I know when you're getting initiated, it's work. And I got, to keep it brief, initiated into light code activation. And I started channeling light codes from the stars. And they come out through vibration. It's kind of like a vibration, like Kundalini rising energy. It's coming down from your crown and it's just like through your mouth. And it's these codes that actually activate you at a cellular level that we carry that we don't even know we carry. And one of my biggest things with that is like, this is sacred work. And I do sometimes, I'll go on social and I'll see people, channel light language here, there casually. This is sacred work. And it was very instilled in me that this is work to be used in sacred space where the frequency supports it. But I have seen firsthand how healing and activated is beyond an understanding because it's speaking to the codes that we carry that we were made from like way back when we were just this like stardust energy of source. And so I know that I carry that code activation ability. And they told me it doesn't even have to be through channeling light codes. It can be through speaking, through dancing. but you have to claim it and step into it and honor it. So I do. And a lot of this work, I mean, I will tell you firsthand, I'm not meant to fully understand. And when I've worked, even I did a ceremony with my partner and I did work on him and he was like, so what do you like thinking? Or I'm like, I'm not thinking. It's literally like just becoming a channel for the divine to work through me to at an energetic level and activate you so that you can evolve. And I don't have to understand it fully. All I have to understand is that it's sacred work and that my job is to be a sacred, pure vessel to be able to bring that. That's all I have to understand.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
People that are, let's say, wanting to step into this world, because you mentioned you did an ayahuasca retreat, like what else have you done that has brought you closer to the type of work that you do now?
I've done, like, personally, I do a lot of solo ceremonies. I also do host retreats. Like, I'm getting ready to host one in April for women in the desert. And, you know, the first thing that really people need to do is find places where they don't have to, where they can purify their channel. Sometimes people are in relationships with people, things, substances that are going to block their activation, their elevation. And that is such a big first step that gets overseen. So people can go spend all this money and do all this work, but it's like, what can you actually remove to purify yourself and your channel so that everything can start pouring in? For me, once I left my marriage, which it just was taking too much of my energy to calibrate to be in it, that really opened me up. And I was born a little bit, I had a lot of mystical experiences as a kid. So I think it was more about, okay, back to where we started and let's go. I'm a big advocate for plant medicine done correctly and in a sacred container and with the proper facilitation. I love to work with people in that and kind of help guide them through it and understanding that everything that you need is already in you. So you're on the journey of remembering. There's not a whole lot for you to really go out there and learn. It's about going in and remembering. And so that's really important. Who you do work with is important. But I would say on the daily, it's what is in your physical space that doesn't serve. It's just as potent to take things out and simplify and purify than it is to put things in.
Absolutely. I think that's really, really powerful what you're saying, because a lot of times people just want to, let's say, add or purchase things, like just the quick way. Like, what do I have to do? Like, what do I have to do? Without realizing that sometimes what needs to be done is like a cleanse, right? Like
Huh.
a clearing, a removing of certain things. And it's interesting that you mentioned sometimes it's relationships that block us, or just whatever in our space that takes our energy, right? You talk about energy, do energy work. This is a lot of, like, when you get rid of something that has been eating at you, that is taking a lot of your energy, it feels like such a relief. So it makes sense that one of the first steps would be to like analyze our lives and say, what is it that I can remove from my daily, rituals, or from my life in general, that will create space inside me to be able to connect more to God and to source.
Sometimes it's technology too. I mean, we are here to connect with the technology within. So technology, it's like a double-edged sword. Sometimes it's great for connection and for expressing your message, but people can sometimes get consumed and completely disconnect with their own technology. And that is something that we need to be aware of for sure.
Absolutely. How do you balance that, Salwa? How do you balance like being connected and knowing that you have this like mission to like activate people and get them connected, but also know that you also need that space and time? How do you balance that?
I take social media cleanses. I used to take them every year for 1 to 4 months. Now I'm not quite in a place where I can do that and still successfully complete my mission, but I take days off. I will have days where I won't open the app. And I used to get a little bit like, oh my gosh, are people gonna think that I don't care about their posts? Because it's this thing of wanting to support people and you don't just want to be the one getting support. And
Yeah,
I have to just shut it off and know that the energy, how I show up when I'm back is more than twice as powerful because it's not depleted. It's not coming from a place of trying. It's coming from an authentic place. And it just takes an effort. I would say take even one day off social a week and see how you feel. but really take it off. Like, don't open the app. And I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. I am not quite as hooked on it as other people though. So, but that's how I balance it. I take days off. It's important. And I also know, maybe I can't take a day off, but for these 3 hours, it's off. And don't get in the habit of like, phone out. People have this habit, but they don't even know that they can't not check their phone. That's bad. That's not, and I don't like to use the word bad, but that is counterproductive to how you're supposed to connect. How often do you actually stop and close your eyes and see where you're at like a soul level? Let's do that as much too.
Yeah, I love it. Now, when you were talking on your first episode again, you talk about like your journey at when motherhood came into your life, right? And it was at a time where you also felt like a deep calling for a mission, right? That you had here on earth. And one of the things that you loved and that you really wanted to pursue and create like was fashion design, right? And you wanted to create your company, you want to become an entrepreneur. And then at the same time, motherhood came in, and you're a mother of three. I'm a mother of three as well. So I think like mothers can really relate to you, because like, wow, sometimes we see these women that are able to create amazing things, and they're also full-time mothers. They're like, it's a big game. It's a lot. Sometimes we feel as moms, and you talk about it, how you're wanting to put energy in something, but then motherhood comes in and it takes precedent. It's basically like, nope, this is what you're going to do first, right? What advice can you give women? Because you've already sort of gone through it and are on the other side of it, in the sense that you've been able to create a space for your business, right? But there was a moment in time, what I heard was that you felt like it would never come to be. So like, what advice would you give those women that are in that space right now, where they do have that deep sense of wanting to create, becoming an entrepreneur, and at the same time juggle the motherhood at the same
That's
time?
a great question. Yeah. So for me personally, I did not grow up hearing the most healthy narrative on motherhood at home. I didn't. So I thought, I'm going to do everything I want to do first, and then I'll be a mom when I'm ready to give it all up and get fat. Because that's just what I grew up hearing, that like, I love my mom and I love my family, but it just was not, the whole mompreneur thing was not really supported. It wasn't. So it was a surprise when I got pregnant with my first. I was in grad school for fashion design. I was so close to getting that dream job in LA, that dream, in quotations, because at the time, that's what I thought I wanted. And my best advice really for mothers would be that you remember, and I actually recorded an episode on this, but I'm going to like share it here because this is so on point. The mom guilt thing, okay? But you have to remember and meet your child at the soul level, not the human level. Your child chose you for who you are in essence and at a soul level and your mission and purpose. They didn't choose you because you're on top of laundry or you make the best lunches. That is not why they chose you. So if you start losing yourself to meet those earthly credentials, and you start losing yourself at a soul level, at a purpose level, you're actually not honoring that child. You're not honoring their choice. So it's important to have the bigger picture, like the star view. I zoom out and I see it from a whole other point of view, where they chose me because they know what I'm here to do. Now, at a child level, human level, they're not going to understand when it's like Wednesday and they want to go play somewhere and I have work to do. They might not get it, but at a soul level, they're going to thank me because I'm honoring that essence and that mission and purpose, and that honors their choice and why they chose me to be their vessel. So to have a bigger perspective, and the moments where you feel like maybe you're not being the best mom, you actually are. You're being the best mom. Your child didn't choose you for your meatloaf or whatever whatever you think other moms are doing better. And balance and making them a part of the journey. I love making my kids a part of the journey. They've gone to so many shoots. They get to hear what I'm working on. I ask for their opinion. I'm like, what do you think about this? Even with the portalcast. I mean, they were watching my episodes and I was like, guys, I don't know if I should cuss. And Jacob's like, no, mom, it makes you more relatable. I love it. And then Thomas gave his opinion. Like, I make them a part of the journey so that they don't feel like I'm choosing that or them. They know we're all in this together.
I love that. I love that. And like, and how do you now like translate I guess your spirituality at home? Like, how do they connect? How do you have them connect to source? Like, do you have any like practices? I know, like, I pray with my children before going to bed. I sort of teach them the same prayers that I was taught when we have like a ritual going to bed? What are the things that you do to sort of bring all of that that's so important to you to them?
Yeah, so I actually do involve them in energy work sometimes at night when they're feeling a little anxious or scared. They ask for energy work, like, Mom, can you give me energy work? I'm not sleepy. And I just really, it's about having the outspoken expression of it and not expecting them to understand it, receive it, but just making it a part of them, their life. And a lot of kids are coming in with such more tapped in energy, and they're so much more ascended. I mean, that this is a whole other topic, but that's why there's so much autism and ADHD, because there's kids are so high energy that they don't know where to channel it. So some of the most gifted kids are the ones being put on medicine, which is a whole other topic for me. But I think just having the conversation, not filtering. We don't need to filter, just saying it or being like, I'm going to go meditate or I'm going to go off the grid. I don't give my kids like the entire story, but I'm like, I'm going to go on a spiritual retreat. I'm not be off, my technology, because I'm going to be connecting with God and my guides. And they're like, okay. So they start to understand these things, and, they'll get more parts of the story as I feel they're ready, but I don't lie to them, and I find little ways to involve them. They see my altar. I'm like, you want to put your crystals here for the full moon to charge them? And they're like, okay. Like, I just find little ways to involve them, and I make sure that I don't over filter to the point that they're not getting the authentic me. I mean, how hypocritical if I'm all about authenticity, but my kids don't get the authentic me. That's not honoring them.
Absolutely. It's interesting how you say that because I agree in the sense that kids are so much more tapped into that. And it's so much easier sometimes to talk to kids about spirituality and about God than it is to adults. Like my 6-year-old, and this was when was this? Like a couple months back. He just started talking to me about how he talks to Jesus and how Jesus talks to him, which is really interesting because I was like, what? And I was like wanting to know more. I'm like, well, what does he tell you? And then he just starts talking, and it was so like natural for him. And
Yeah.
he felt like, and in my mind, I was like, wow, I didn't realize, I guess I hadn't thought in my mind that I had spoken out about Jesus for him to know so much about him. But no, he was telling me about his own encounters and about his own communication with him. And it just blew my mind. I was like, this is amazing how connected we are when we're little, and how sometimes we are sort of pulled back from that, from the world, and how we
Their
disconnect.
veil, their veil and their lens is so thin because they're so pure that they can just receive. So we kind of teach them to make it thicker and to discern more. So, I mean, yeah, the fact that we think we can teach our kids about spirituality is sometimes funny, because I'm like, they could teach us.
That's so true. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, your podcast. Now you call it a portal cast. Tell us why you call it a portal cast in the beginning.
So first of all, I don't like to do anything how anybody does it. I've learned that about myself. But most of all, I was chatting with my guys when they gave me this assignment, and I was thinking, I know so many amazing people, such as yourself, with podcasts, that I'm like, can I just be on theirs and support theirs? They're already kicking ass. Like, why do I need another? Like, why? And they kind of gave it to me in a much different picture, where this is a portal of spoken activation and taking these big why questions and whys and transcending them into spiritual understanding. That's a portal, because you're not going to leave the same way you entered. So can you do that? Like, I can do that. So that's why it's a portal cast.
I love it. I love it. And wine and spirits, obviously we're talking, it's a play on words, like Mamas con Ganas is a play on words, but so it's spelled WY apostrophe N, and spirits as in real spirits, not like liquor
Yeah.
spirits.
WHY, like why?
WHY. That's what it says. Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
then the end, because I'm like, yeah, wine, and also like the things that we whine about. Let's see how we can turn those into spiritual understanding and laughter and fun. And I got a great, I didn't know what I was going to call it. I think it was, I met you at the podcast movement, and I wasn't clear, super clear on the vision yet. I knew it was coming, but I was still like unfolding. And I was at the grocery store with my kids, and I was driving out of the parking lot, and I saw a liquor store. I'm like, wine and spirits. Oh my God, that's it. And I asked the kids, I let my kids kind of channel for me all the time, because I will ask them, like, hey, what do you think? Don't think about it. This is you just channeling A or B. And they give me B. So I'm like, what do you think of this? I'm like, yes, you have to do it. So that's how the name came, and just kind of like, shut up. I'm like, okay, yeah, that feels right.
I love it. I love it. So are you now you consider your portal caster? I guess that's what you are.
Oh, portalcaster, yeah, the first one in Colorado, at least. I don't know where else there might be some.
I love it. I love it. One of the things that I was thinking when I was preparing your interview is that more and more women, I feel, are lately stepping into like their divine power, right? Just in different, mostly here in this country right now. I feel like more women are creating their own businesses, making more money. People that come to mind in like the music industry, for example, are women like Taylor Swift, obviously, Beyonce, women that when we look at, I feel like most of us are like, yeah, I think the reason we love them so much is because they envelop this essence of feminine energy that I think for such a long time has been stifled in society, right? It's sort of we're stepping in and we're rising up. Um, I'm asking you a question through what you, and this is, I guess, because you consider yourself the priestess of Yeshua. And I'm thinking about how you were saying that he was the person who would always be with the outcasts, right? We think of Mary Magdalene, right? I was listening to an episode recently about the Gnostic Gospels and about how in the beginning of Christianity, women were very much a part, right, of Christianity. And then for some reason, came up a time where we were sort of shut down, right? Sort of like taken out, like no, there's no priestesses, obviously, in the Catholic Church. Interestingly enough, then I went on vacation right now in Europe, and I was seeing this movie on the French Revolution. And during the French Revolution, when they were taking out the monarchy, there were a lot of feminists, very strong women that were influential figures in the Revolution of France. And then after the revolution came Napoleon, which was like basically a complete backwards movement in the
Yeah.
female in the female space, right?
Watch
And I guess where I'm getting to at is what is your perspective on Jeshua and women?
So Mary Magdalene was just as powerful as Yeshua. They trained, they had the same teachings. They grew up in the practices 304. Mary Magdalene she came from money. The whole story in the Bible it's not correct. And I'm not afraid to speak up about it because I've done enough work and study and my own past life regression with lifetimes with Mary Magdalene. And I'm just like, we have it so wrong. She actually was part of his mission, and they were energy workers together, and she had her own apostles. She had 12 apostles too. And the reason why this was shunned out of the Bible, the same reason that a lot of things were. I mean, I will drop this. Do some research on the emerald tablets if you really want to go into like this is information, like miles and miles of information stored under the Vatican that we don't have access to. And there's just so much that was shunned out. Women are an integral part. The divine feminine in the rise of the divine is key. It's life. I mean, Gaia, look at the planet. The planet is a divine feminine, and that is what births everything. And I think that the male power and ego thing, right? And I'm not talking about Yeshua or anybody in particular, but the history figures that kind of started filtering that out. That was a whole movement that right now we are recalibrating. And that is why the rise of the divine feminine is important, not just for women, but for men to heal the lineage of toxic masculinity and the shutting out of power. But Yeshua, Mary Magdalene and Yeshua they were equals and they were a mission together. And she was an integral part of him being able to do the energy work necessary to go through his master soul initiation through the crucifixion. And like I said, she had her own apostles. She had family with money. So she was able to help. She was like his PR event production person because he was able to go around and give these talks and she was part of orchestrating that. There's so many things that aren't spoken about her. So Yeshua loves the children and he loves the women. Like that sounds so bad, but understand that, Christ consciousness will come back with the divine rise feminine because that whole kundalini rising and the ka energy body awakening requires both energies.
I totally agree. I think it's so essential. And I think that's why our work is so important as women. because there are parts of the world where unfortunately, and I feel very like strongly about this, where unfortunately the female energy is repressed in such a manner that there cannot be peace, because our energy is aesthetics, it's beauty, it's art, it's music, it's the receiving, which is another reason why I have a feeling that that's why women are sometimes there. You see a lot of women are very drawn to the space of pure spirituality, because we have that gift. Our energy is of receiving, and sometimes we're able to receive those downloads faster in a way.
Receiving, like, yes, from the divine, but then in the earth, we turn into givers. We give life, we give birth, we give so much to our men. So
Yeah.
I love that you brought up the receiving, because it's as we get in touch with being comfortable receiving because we've given so much, that's also how we're going to recalibrate that energy. And for some reason, there's been so much guilt around women receiving. And I know for myself, when I stepped into the relationship I am now, receiving was a big part of it, because I wasn't used to that. I was used to, being expected to do X, Y, Z at home, or if I wanted to have my business, that was on me, that wasn't supported. And I was doing my work and evolving, and then I was sent a divine masculine that wanted to, support, and I was having to learn to receive. And I realized it is so important that as this female empowerment movement is happening, that we don't become so hard and tough and I got this, I'm a woman, hear me roar, that we actually receive, because that heals this rise of the feminine too. We have to receive.
Absolutely. The yin and the yang, baby. I love it.
Yes.
Salwa, tell us a little bit about your brand, your fashion design brand, a little bit about that, about where people can also find, the things that you sell online, because they're beautiful.
Yeah, everything's on my website. I have, I just kind of everything's under my name umbrella. So I have some fashion collections there, and I definitely am a little bit less into like seasonal and this. I'm so pouring into my podcast, my speaking, my ascension work, my retreats, that I feel like the fashion really served in my energy practice of like getting an idea and like bringing it to life. But I don't foresee that being a huge part of where I'm growing now. It seems like I've kind of graduated from that. So there is fashion, and I would love to sell it. So please go to my website, because I have beautiful stuff there. But where it's going, I do feel like it's kind of completing in the way I was doing it, because I'm stepping into work that is so much more impactful and aligned with my mission, that if I was to keep pouring into that, I would be robbing myself and those that are ready to receive what I have to offer in the other areas, what is coming.
It's interesting how how your business has gone from like the inspiration of I want to have a fashion design business, and then it goes and it becomes this transcendence into spirituality. Same thing with the other physical aspect, which is the dance, and sort of that also molding itself into a spiritual entity of itself, which is the divine sweat.
Yeah, I think that the biggest gift of my fashion business was the journey of creating it and all the things that I was able to activate within me and learn. So if I go beyond the story of the fashion platform, it's really my training and what I received. And I'm so big into going beyond the story. That's what the portalcast is about. And so I think that I'm just kind of taking those same skills, the manifestation, I learned so much about human behavior too. Oh my gosh, and being in fashion, and kind of observing people and being like, wow, that's ego. No, that's this. Like, it was like a great learning ground. And now I'm just like evolving those skills into a different realm. And I'm super excited. I don't even, to be honest, I mean, I don't think about my fashion business that much. I could sit here and like pitch it, but I'm like, I don't even like, it's just like, oh yeah, I have a fashion business. Good question. It's there. My last collection I love, it's Divine Rise, and it's very goddessy, but I'm so focused on just getting on, like, I mean, I'm going to say I want to be on big stages, and I want to activate the masses. And that is not going to happen through clothes. That is going to happen through the energy of my words and energy work and whatever else wants to show up.
I love it. How do you stay connected to the fiercelessness in you? Because we have the Holy Spirit, and you talk about the guides guiding you, but then sometimes, our humanity sort of steps in, right? And we have our fears that come in. So how do you stay connected to the fiercelessness and to your authenticity?
Yeah, great question. So something that I say to a lot of my women at my activation that my guides always want me to remind them, and I'm like, this is kind of morbid, guys, but a lot of us that are here on a mission have already died trying to complete this mission several times. And this is the lifetime where we get to complete it. This is such a pivotal time in life. We are really creating the new earth. And so the fear that might arise, it's good to acknowledge it, but know that you've already been through the worst of it. This is the moment to really rise into that mission. So when I get my fears, they come more so from, what if this doesn't succeed, quote unquote? What if this is not going to turn into a profitable anything? What if, like, such human things? And I'm reminded, if you want to do God work, then you have to change your currency to be beyond this man-made currency and look at God-made currency and allow yourself the gift of the energetic currency that you're receiving. And if you're in peace with that, everything will follow. So I really do remember that I owe myself the opportunity to be here and fearlessly pursue this mission. I already died trying. I know it. A lot of us have, a lot of us women, even a lot of, like, I'm sure, podcasters, speakers, women are using their voice because we've been burned at the stake and we've been punished for speaking up. Like, this is the lifetime where we're not going to play small or let fear come in, because been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, time to rise and put on that crown. So if my fear comes in, I give it love. I acknowledge it. I don't suppress it. I'm like, okay, why am I fearful here? What is the thing? And then I allow my guides to kind of give me perspective. And then I move and I'm like, I'm going to show that fear how much I love it, that I'm going to show it a new way and move on to the next. But it's a practice. It is a practice.
Yeah. And what about fear of criticism? Because it was interesting in your story when you talked about your first dealing with like the haters, right? And you had an Etsy store where you were starting to sell things and somebody put something online that basically took that away, but it was like completely false, right? And you're like, wow, there's like darkness that's coming in here. How do you deal with that? Because I mean, you have a lot of followers. So how do you deal with like any of the negative darkness or haters online, any of that stuff? Any tips there?
So that Etsy shop being taken down, somebody saying my stuff wasn't handmade. That was my first take of like, wow, there are people that are out there they just don't want to see you succeed. Like, that sucks. It hurts. And I know as I grow, I'm like, part of me doesn't think that I'm big enough to have haters yet, but I'm sure they're coming and that's how I'll know I've made it. So, I have to remember, and I do remember because I know they're out there, and I know sometimes we are human, so we get caught in our human mind. Sometimes I'm like, trying not to focus on the people that don't appear to support, but I think, why are they never engaging with me? Why can't they say congratulations when I share good news? Like, I've done so much for them. I've been such a good friend. That's my humanness, right? I catch myself, and I have to remember that is not why I'm here. I'm here to activate the masses. I'm not here to impress the masses and get validation, but I am also aware that they're coming. And you know who have so many haters and so many critics? Yeshua. So I let that inspire me. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of signing up for it. And one thing that is important to remember is that if you are here to inspire, you have to honor the polarity of that, which is trigger. So until you are doing both, you're really not a balanced being harmonizing the laws of the universe. So I'm like, okay, I get messages about how inspiring I am. So of course I'm triggering some, and maybe they'll start speaking up and I'll know I'm doing my job.
That's so interesting. Yes, that you're here to inspire, but that's also going to trigger people. Absolutely.
You can't have it just one way. I mean, that's how you know you're doing it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Salwa, for this interview. Tell people where they can follow you, where they can find all your stuff.
Yeah. So the easiest way to find me on Instagram, Salwa Owens. It's kind of hard to spell, but I'm sure you'll put it somewhere. And then from there, all like the Wine and Spirits and Divine Sweat Instagrams are linked, and my website, salwaowens.com, has all the things. So I think we'll keep it simple and just go to Salwa Owens, all the things. Believe it or not, I'm the only one. Nothing was taken.
Yes. And just so that you know, Mamacita, you can find all her links, and you can also comment and send questions on this episode on mamasconganaspodcast.com/216. mamasconganaspodcast.com/216. Thanks again, Salwa. You're a light. It was awesome to have you on here.
Thank you. I loved our conversation. Thank you so much. Great questions too. So good.
Thank you. Thank you. See you next week, Mamacita. Besitos. Mwah. Hey, it's Valentina Azara. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing to our motivational channel. If you have any questions or comments, visit our website at mamasconganaspodcast.com or follow me on social media at mamasconganas. And remember, Don't be a mama con drama. Let's be mamas con ganas.